Welcome to OK Now What? I'm your host, Kate Gladden, episode 22. This is the show for people who know life doesn't happen to you, life happens, and the impact it has is up to you. All right, beautiful people, welcome back to another episode. And I know I say this a lot, like you're in for a treat when I bring on a special guest, but this one, I mean that with my whole heart. This wonderful woman has been a big part of my journey now for over 10 years since she came into my life. I wish sometimes it was under better circumstances, which we'll share a little bit about how we connected through my beautiful sister. But since then, I've been forever in awe of the, I guess, energy, spirit, and passion of which she goes after life. And she's just been a huge inspiration to me, which is why I'm really excited to bring her on the show to share a little bit more about her story. She's got a particularly cool adventure that she's been going on. She's still on it right now, that I can't wait to share with you guys. Because when I first heard she was doing it, I'm like, "You're doing what?" But I love it. Taking life by the balls and just going after it. And so, without further ado, I'll introduce you all to the amazing, wonderful, insanely talented. In fact, she sung Nate and I down the aisle. No, me down the aisle. Nate was down the end of it. Without further ado, it's the wonderful Lyndell Harbeck. Welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Kate.
I love that you were
I
just
love
like
that
swaying and
intro.
laughing along.
I was loving it. I just really need you to introduce me to every room I enter. That would be.
Oh, I love it. Same goes for you. So tell us a little bit about, we'll keep it kind of to start with just the official stuff, what you're mentioning earlier, like kind of what you do now. And then I'm going to ask you about the adventure you've been going on.
Yeah, sure. What I do now in terms of like work
Yeah,
and day.
yeah. Like your kick butt company that you're running and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I started a marketing company, I'm going to say 6.5 years ago.
Hmm.
Out of necessity because my husband was traveling a lot, being in the military, and every time we moved house, I needed to find a new job, and I was like,
Hmm.
this sucks. So I
Hmm.
started my own side hustle, and it grew and grew and grew, and then 2.5 years ago, I merged with a connection of mine who also had her own marketing business, and we formed Marketing Movement together. And Marketing Movement itself has been operating for 6 years, and we've got a little team of eight, and we
I love
do
it.
broad scale marketing for other businesses around Australia and some overseas, so some in the US as well.
That's so awesome. I didn't realize it was growing so much. I didn't know you did US stuff. I have to check you out. Now I know you can help
Yeah.
me over here. And I think going back a little, like I can connect with you on, dating someone in the military and being married to someone in the military is not an easy thing. So to start with, I just want to like ask, what did you personally find helpful with like the constant like have a plan, scrap the plan, need a new plan, dealing with all the uncertainty and even just like the time apart and stuff. Like in case there's any other military spouses or girlfriends or boyfriends listening, what advice do you have to give to help with that?
That's a very good question. I can't say that I've always handled that brilliantly. It's been really tough sometimes. And
Hmm.
Tommy spent a lot of time away. Like we would count, there were a period of maybe 4 years that when we actually worked it out, I saw him 3 out of 12 months per year. Like it was just
Yeah.
pretty insane and several deployments. And I think you just become a little bit more of an independent version of yourself. I was very, very independent before we met, and then we met, and my guard kind of loosened, and it was really nice to depend on someone who was so dependable. But then that's also a double-edged sword because then when they do leave, it's like, oh, now I'm alone. There's a part of me that all like that got used to it. And you just people say to me, "Oh, how did you do it? It must be so hard." I'm like, you do it when you have to do it. When someone's
Yeah.
worth it,
Yeah.
it's not great and it's kind of shitty, but I'd do it again for him. It's just
Hmm.
how the cookie crumbles. Like I could have had probably a much easier, more in the flesh relationship with someone else, but that's not what I wanted. So
Hmm.
I think hard things are worth hard work
Yeah.
at the end of the yeah.
Absolutely. That's kind of what's gotten us through, like at first, the long distance and just dealing with immigration. Like you leave the country and you're like boy, I hope I can, get back in and stay. Like there's so much like uncertain stuff
When I
around
see you
that
again.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also I got over here and then he started traveling a lot, even during COVID. And it wasn't like for long, like months on end, but it'd just be like at the drop of a hat, like, and I'm there with no friends in a one-bedroom apartment on the third floor in New Jersey. Like, what am I doing? And so I totally agree. It's like in anything that like, even through the loss of my beautiful sister that I know you love dearly too. It's like you don't know how strong you are until strong's the only choice you have because you're just not going to give up, and it's really knowing that it's worth it. But I do love what you said, becoming a more independent version of yourself. Like it probably is because of all that coming and going and uncertainty that, you know, like you said, inspired you to create this company, which is now enabling you to go on this other, more exciting, in a better way, unpredictable, but in a good way journey. Um, I'm just going to say it straight, guys. Lyndall and her wonderful husband, Tommy, sold 90% of their stuff, packed up their house, started renting it out, and now live on a boat. So you've gone
Yeah.
sailing for how many days did you go? Like on the water?
It was just shy of 6 months,
Wow.
um, which is crazy. Yeah, we left in May from Perth. And if you're not familiar, Perth's on the west coast of Australia. And then we sailed all the way up the west coast of Australia to kind of the top of the Northern Territory, so the top of the middle of the country, to a place called Darwin. And we did take our time getting there because it's pretty amazingly beautiful.
Mm.
So that's what we've been doing. And now we're in Darwin.
Wow. Okay. Take me back to the beginning. How does
Yes.
this all start? How do you like who looked at each someone first and said, "Babe, do you want to live on a boat?" Like,
Tommy did that, yes.
not surprised.
And in true Tommy fashion, it was a millennia ago because we were backpacking through South America, honestly, 10 years ago. And he goes, "Oh, would you ever want to live on a boat?" And you know me, I'm a very much a yes man. So I was just like, yeah, I'd probably live on a boat one day. Yeah, no worries. Um, why not? Can't knock it till you tried it. And not a sailor, not a sea person. Like I love the ocean, but I'm not an avid fisherman or anything like that. And then that kind of was in the back seat for a while. And then it would come up now and then in conversation. And then we were like, yeah, let's make it happen. We bought a few smaller sailboats in Perth and we kind of got acquainted. Tommy had a little bit of a sailing background, so he was already one step ahead of me in the skill set department. And then, yeah, we kind of went through a few different smaller boats and then we bought a big boat, which isn't this one, thinking that we would use that on our trip. And kind of like your situation with your house,
Hmm.
we ended up kind of, we sat down and we worked out, we were like, oh, why are we doing this dream 3/4 of the way on this particular vessel? It was nice, but it wasn't our
Hmm.
dream vessel. And then we were like, well, if we shuffle things round and we can actually make it work. And we found this boat that I'm sitting in right now. So then we just took a leap and all of a sudden we had two boats and we had to get rid of one.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know that feeling just with
yeah,
housing.
yeah, yeah. Um, and yeah, we bought this boat and we chuffed off in May.
That's amazing. Now, was what was the process like of I'm sure it wasn't just chuffing off. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a bit into it. So,
Yeah.
let's try and think of a fun way to phrase this. Looking back now, 6 months on or so, and you've gone through like the initial first adventure of living on the boat, what advice would you give yourself that was just starting to pack up and get ready to leave? Were there things you were worried about that you didn't need to be, or maybe things maybe you should have been more mindful of if you can look back in
Yeah.
hindsight?
Yeah, for sure. I did. I think the lead up to beginning the trip was just so full on, like packing up the house. I had another job in Perth, that I had teaching spin class,
Oh yeah.
at a place called Bike Bar, which I adored. So I had to wrap that up and say goodbye to friends and sell all of our belongings. And there was just so much going on that I probably didn't dedicate enough time to just knowing exactly how to sail. Like I knew how to sail, but I was still fairly fresh. Like if
Mhm.
Tommy were to fall overboard at that period of time, I probably would have been a little bit stuck. So
Mm.
I did a lot of learning in that initial 2 months when we left. And my learning curve was steep but very sharp. Like I got proficient really quickly when you're living on a boat.
Yeah.
I think if I could go back and give myself some advice, it would be, and Tommy will love this because he did say this at the time, just be a little bit more gradual with your learning so it didn't feel like so much of a deep end experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then advice for the first few months on the boat would be just to take a breath, and it's okay if there's a bit of overwhelm because it's a very new experience and this isn't normal. This isn't like standard societal behavior.
Yeah.
So I feel like, beating myself up if I was feeling a bit overwhelmed, or if, we're in this small space now, it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be a different dynamic in a relationship at times. Like all of these things are very, very normal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think I probably had a little bit of a heightened expectation of how perfect it would be. And
Mm-hmm.
nothing's perfect. So a bit of a reminder on that front, I think would have been good.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you struggle a lot? Like I kind of mentioned to you, a big reason I wanted to have you on the show is just like I feel like so many people get stuck in planning and preparation mode and just overthink and want to know 17 steps ahead how to respond. Like if this happens or that happens or what if that happens and this and that and like almost talk themselves out because there is so much uncertainty and you're freaking going out in the ocean where like that's the epitome of uncertainty and you don't know what you're going to get and weather changes and everything like that. So first and foremost, I just wanted people to listen and know there are people out there that just take a chance, pull things together and go after it. So what would you say to someone out there that is kind of their equivalent of packing up their house and going to live on a boat is trying to make a career change or, maybe move cities or something and then kind of sitting in like overthinking it mode? Do you have any advice or tips for them?
I do. And it's actually, funnily enough, this is advice that I carry with myself all the time, and it's advice your sister gave me.
Oh.
At the time, yeah, it's actually really lovely. At the time when she gave me this advice initially, I was thinking about moving to London, which I later did. And she said to me, she goes, Lyndall, there's no such thing as the perfect time. There's just no such thing. And I think you can be prepared, and preparation is key. Like you need to be ready, like both financially and, you
Mm.
know,
Hmm.
mentally ready. Um, but there is no such thing as the perfect time. You're not going to wake up one day and all the pieces fall into place and the yellow brick road is in front of you saying, please, let's go now. It's not going to happen. So
Hmm.
you can either wait for something that does not exist or you can make it happen yourself. And I
Love that.
think, well, if you just decide to do it and you hold yourself accountable to making it happen, you won't regret it. Like there's no situation where you go, I really regret taking a chance and being courageous at the
Mm.
thing that I've wanted to do for such a long time. If it's important to you, and it's an important enough decision to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Good one, Nick is always full of those
Yeah,
beautiful
always full of
yeah, good
tidbits.
advice. Yeah. It's so true though. Like I even just like with this house that we just moved into, or even moving to the US and speaking of Nicole and all her wisdom, like, I'm always so proud of everything she achieved as a dancer and in her career in journalism. But I honestly think she taught me so much when she went to the New Zealand Ballet after years of begging and mum, let me go and everything, and like just the biggest drama show to get there. And my parents let her go at 16 years old to the New Zealand Ballet. And then after 6 months, she was willing to turn around and be like, actually, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And she just packed right back up and came home. That, like, like you can also just change your mind if you're so far down the track. Like, and nothing is permanent in that way. Like, we're like, permanently overthinking things. And I was just like, and so when I moved to the US to be with Nate, like for 3 months, we did like a little like, let's see if we can live together kind of thing. But it was a big deal and, it was scary and trying to figure out all my business stuff. But I was like, but worst case scenario, we end up like, oh, this isn't what we thought, and I'll come right back on home. Like, it's not that hard. Like, if you change careers, you realize it isn't what you wanted. Like, you can always pivot and course correct along the path. But I always just stand by like overthinking never brings clarity. Only like making decisions and taking action does, because you can always learn and kind of course correct from there. So I love that. And you guys are living examples of that. And has it been worth it so far?
Definitely. There's been highs and lows. There's been some crappy weather.
Mm.
Um, there have been crocodiles. Um,
The, the Americans right now are loving
oh,
this. They're like
oh my
crocodiles
God.
and
Yeah, this is a quintessential Australian interview. Honestly, crocodiles scared the living daylights out of me. And we've seen quite a few. Like there was one, I'll keep it brief, but there was one morning we were anchored up by this little island and there was this croc just circling our boat. Like it's like a 3 meter crocodile.
mm.
Um, because we've got a dog who is like
Oh,
just
hey.
snoozing. She was out on the deck and we've got little fencing up and stuff, but the crocodile was just circling, just watching our dog. And every time I would come out on deck, it would just submerge under the water. And I was like, you cheeky bugger, get out here. They're very stalky and very, very scary. They're watching you, but you have no idea. So,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
side of but I think amidst all the challenges, of which there have been quite a few, and adjustments, it's definitely been worth it. I don't regret it one bit.
Yeah. And oh my gosh, such a cliche. Hasn't been smooth sailing, but I think like you nothing in
Literally
life.
or metaphorically, which
I just thought of that. I'm like, oh, this is too good not to insert right here. But think about it. What the heck in life is like, you don't
no,
go after this, and then you're haunted by the what ifs, which is what Nicole taught me a lot too. Like, don't, it's always better an oh well than a what if. And studies show, like research, people literally the number one biggest regret universally around the world in all different countries is the things we don't do, as opposed to the things we did that didn't work out. At least you can take something from it. At least at least you can close the loop in your brain of like, okay, that wasn't meant to be. But yeah.
yeah. Or realize what you want and what you don't want. Like I
Hmm.
love before you were like, oh, if, Nicole went to the New Zealand Ballet and realized she didn't want to do it. I think there's this preconceived idea, and I've been guilty of this at times in my life, that you think doing something and then realizing, oh, this wasn't the right decision for me, and coming back is a turnaround 180 and going backwards. It's not. It's exactly what you said. It's a pivot.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
might feel like you're going backwards, but you're actually going back on a diagonal line because you might be
Mm.
physically returning to the space you came from, but you're not
Hmm.
in the same space here.
Yeah.
You're in a
Yeah.
different space. So yeah,
No. That's a good
yeah.
way to put it. You're never going back. Yeah, I just love like I speak about it in my book too, like what she taught me about like it's okay to change directions. Like I love it. Even if you guys after 2 months were like, you know what, this sailing things are not exactly what we thought. At least you now know and have that as a memory and experience as a couple too. I'm sure you've grown a lot in trusting each
Definitely.
other and
Yeah.
you've gone from basically not seeing each other to
Yeah.
constantly seeing.
Tolerance levels are now through the roof. But
Oh my
honestly,
God.
like we love each other dearly. We are best friends, but in the same breath, it's like you put people that don't see each other that much, over the last 10 years, when you compare it to a standard relationship, I guess.
Mhm.
And now we're in a very, very small environment together. And there's going to be times where we grind each other's gears because that's life.
Yeah.
But you can't just go for a walk when you're on the ocean.
Yeah.
Like,
And I wouldn't
I'm
recommend going for a swim.
yeah, no,
Not with Mr. Croc around, but
no way, no
yeah.
way. There was a lot of adjustments, and I do think from a relationship perspective, we've come leaps and bounds,
Hmm.
which is
Yeah.
nice after 10 years together that you can think that there's still learning to do. Of course there is, but it's nice to know that.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like I said, what an adventure to be able to look back on. And I always think about um I don't know, just hearing your story reminds me a lot. It sounds morbid, but honestly, being close to death has taught me most about life. And I think, through losing Nicole and having to literally, write a funeral speech, as I know you also spoke at her funeral too. And I think about just like Nicole's short 24 years laid out, there were moments listening along to like her obituary where you're like, she did what? Like it was just like it wasn't in this expected way. It was twist and turn and diagonal. Like And that's kind of like I want how I want my eulogy to read one day is going to be like she did this and then that, and it's like you walk away from it inspired to live a little more, because that's what Nicole did for all of us through how she chose to live her life. And I think it's such a gift to give yourself while you're here, but also, people listening right now, just even hearing your story, are going to be like, wow, like that's, I can just do that. Like I could just do it because I can, because I want to, because it's possible. I love that. So thank you for being so honest and genuine and sharing that story, the highs and lows. I can't even imagine a seasickness being a thing. Or
I've been very lucky. Some people get very, very sick, and then this is just not, you just can't make it happen because if you're really, really badly seasick, there is just no way you can live on a boat, like
mm,
unless you're heavily medicated and very, very tolerant. But I got a little bit sick. Up a certain passage of the West Coast is was quite rough for us, and it was really
mhm.
like quite awful, especially when you're trying to work on a laptop. Like,
Oh
oh
my
my,
gosh, that'd be like being in a car, like when it
yeah, no,
stopped
it was not,
start and stuff. Yeah,
not ideal.
yeah,
Um, certain days working with a beautiful sunset backdrop, gorgeous. And you're like, wow, look at my office today. And then
yeah,
other days holding onto my laptop, trying to do really, really important work. And I'm like, this can't wait.
yes,
Um, but yeah, I've lost my train of thought now, but it's been a very, very interesting experience.
for sure. And just quickly touching on the business side of things, what have you learned? Like, okay, there's a woman listening who's like wanting to start her own online business or something, and she's ready to go, she's feeling good, but like what advice would you give now, 6 to 8 years, I think you mentioned, like into the journey of running stuff online? What do you wish you knew when you started out?
What do I wish I knew? A few things that I've learned that I think would be really great to know at the beginning. You've just got to kind of live, breathe, and back yourself. I
Mm,
think a lot of people start businesses and there's an element of themselves who don't believe in their own business. And
mm,
you can't operate. If you want other people to believe in your business, you have to wholeheartedly believe in your business.
mm-hmm,
And I think the first few years, because it started off like most online businesses do, as more of a side hustle,
mm-hmm.
I was very like, maybe downplaying it. Oh yeah, I do that on the side, it's not a big
Mm,
deal.
like jobby,
Whereas, yeah, I'm
like
like,
half
well,
hobby, half
oh,
job. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm like, no, I should have just backed myself a little bit more in those early days. Um, I'm very lucky as well. I've got a business partner and we're very yin and yang and we get along like a house on fire, but we've got these nice kind of um yeah, different skill sets. So we bring different things to the table, but having someone to bounce things off and to call and be like, oh my God, having a day. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
nice. It doesn't feel lonely. And also just knowing that things take time. Like
Yeah.
some people go viral overnight. Sure, that happens. But for most of us, it doesn't. It takes consistency, patience, and hard work. And if you want to start a business and then have that be a full-time wage within 6 months, maybe adjust your expectations a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, things grow with time. So
Yes.
just like my business is in a really great place now. And we're still growing, which is epic, but it's taken time to get there.
Yes. And honestly, the key word you said there too is consistency. Like that's the
Yeah,
biggest thing I've learned, like showing up, doing the emails when you don't feel like writing that next email or the copy or even the podcast episodes and stuff like that. Like I've been doing this consistently. My podcast started in 2018, but I'm in this pivot now in my business, branching out to work more with women and adults and resilience in that way, not beyond teens. And I feel like I'm now back in the beginning again of like the struggle phase and just keeping my head above water with that backing yourself, like the self-belief piece that you said. And I think it's when anyone kind of doubts or, oh, you're doing that, like you can hear it in some people's voices, and I'm
judgment.
just, yeah, and I'm like, but they don't know how hard I'm willing to work, how many times I'm willing to fail, how many times I'm going to get up early, show up late, like do all that stuff. And so that's what you've just got to know. If you see the doubt in other people's eyes, I would just remind myself, they don't know how hard I'm willing to work for
No,
this.
yeah, and they're probably just projecting the doubt that they have if they were to do that. So they're
Mm-hmm.
probably listening to you going, oh, I could never do that. Oh, you're doing that? Oh, I don't. That's cool because you don't have to do that. It's not your
Yes.
life, not your. It's what I'm doing. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit it's very cliche, but I do genuinely believe you're not given the desire to do something without the capacity to do it. Like there's a reason we've been given that calling, that little, whisper in
yeah,
your ear of like, maybe you should try this. But the biggest thing, like you said, is keeping realistic expectations in check. Is such a big one. And I've learning like more to is it outsource or like just
that's
freelance
awesome.
with people and like just get some more support around me too. Because I am like a one woman show within my company business, but I definitely yeah, hire out and get extra support in that way, which has been super valuable, I think, sometimes. But it's hard in the beginning. I think in my mind, you always invest with either your time or your money. So when you get to a point where you can pay someone to do it rather than giving your time to it, it is nice to free up the extra time for other things. So my biggest thing is learning not to be a control freak and surrender some of that control to other people.
It is very difficult when it's
Yeah.
your business baby because you're
Yes.
like, oh, I'm just gonna give this to you. Don't ruin it, please.
So true. It's so true. But
But
there's
that's very true though. Like when you're in that early stages, you have to do everything because
Mhm.
you have to. You can't
Yeah.
afford to outsource to everyone.
Mhm.
But when you get to that point where you can start outsourcing and get someone to do a potentially better job than you at that particular task, it's kind of
Mhm.
exciting. So you're
Yeah.
like, okay, actually at a point where I can invest financially in my own business and bring on some professionals that do that and that only. And I know that
Mhm.
they can do that better than me. It's a kind
Yes.
of exciting.
Yes. Yes. No, I love seeing that growth and just freeing up my mental headspace, like to do other things that is in my, specialty and creativity and all of that. So there's one last thing I wanted to touch on as it came to me as I was talking to you, which I, again, there's so many reasons I admire you, and I'm going to make sure you give your music a shout out at the end of this because I know you've launched it. Was it,
Ah,
what did you launch on? Was it SoundCloud or what's it
I
on?
did. Yeah, I
Okay.
released a song.
Yeah. So we'll make sure we give that a plug because Lyndall has the most incredible voice and an amazing songwriter. Um, but gosh, it was 2020, right? I think it was because I remember Mum, Dad, and I huddled around the iPad watching you via Zoom, I'm pretty sure it was, do something incredibly generous and selfless and something that's I find so inspiring. And that was that you shaved your head for cancer.
I did. Uh, and I think you've nailed the date. I'm pretty sure it was 2020. And it
Yeah.
was like peak COVID. And at one point in time, the WA where I lived said, you can't have visitors. And I was like, but I've chosen the 1st of May to be my shave date. So do I have to do a full Britney Spears and do it myself? Like, what is going to
You
happen?
really lost your mind then.
I know it's going to be a very funny live stream, but I was lucky enough to I was allowed 8 friends, I think, over at my house. That was the
Yeah,
little
that's how I
rule.
remember it was COVID because I was talking to you about it and you're like, well, I'm allowed 8 guests and we went
Yeah,
for
so I
it.
yeah,
Yes, no, but we were like cheering you on for sure. Um, just a little bit like, how was that experience? As a woman, our hair is a big part of
everything.
us. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's how like feel
Um,
girly with the flick of a hair and everything. So talk to me about that. That was a huge, huge deal, I'm sure.
yeah. Well, I am a little bit stubborn. So maybe like 5 years prior to that, I would have been around 25. And I saw someone do the Shave for a Cure. So for the Leukemia Foundation, the shave head to raise money for leukemia. And I was like, man, that is selfless. Like that is so cool. Because as women, we put a lot of emphasis into our hair. We color it, we style it, like it's very much a part of our physical identity. And I was like, I think that is a really beautiful gesture. And then I was like, one day I'm going to do that. One day I'm going to do it. It's on the list. It has to happen because I want to be that kind of person because that is very, very cool. And then well, met Tommy, got engaged, and I was like, might wait till after the wedding. Maybe, like.
We made some good wedding photos. Bald head. Love it.
Buzz cut's not my strongest look. So I waited. Basically, we got married. And as soon as we got married, I was like, okay, I set the date. And I think it was like a year later. And once I set the date, I put it out there in the universe. I told everyone I knew, this is what I'm doing.
Mm.
Because I'm like, accountability. I'm not going back. I'm not going to change my mind. This is happening. And Tommy was very, very supportive, which was really, really nice as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I later found out, so Tommy lost his dad when he was 19. And I knew that Peter, his dad, was quite sick. He had emphysema and a few other health things going on. What I did not know is the thing that actually killed him was leukemia.
Mm.
So I had decided to do this, and I was speaking to my mother-in-law, and she was very, very tickled by my gesture. And she said, "You do know that's what killed Peter was
Oh.
leukemia." And I was like, "Oh, how beautiful that that's
Mm-hmm.
like those like sliding door
Came
things, something
together.
to do it." And so yeah, I colored my hair first, every color under the sun. At one point I was rainbow, at one point I was blue. It was horrific. But I also was like, it's going anyway, why not?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I shaved my head, and surprisingly, it didn't take that long to grow back. And I'm very grateful that, you know, my hair grows back. And so what's there to lose? I
Mm.
raised $13,000.
Amazing. Yeah.
Like, as if, like, it's hair that grows back, and I shaved mine for $13,000. Like, I just think I
Yes.
could do it again.
That's amazing. And such a good almost an metaphor or an analogy, like almost for what we're saying. Like it always like you can always it'll come back around, you can pivot, you can change. Like nothing's like that permanent that we need to permanently stay overthinking it or living in
Absolutely.
fear. Yeah.
Had
Yeah.
some ugly cuts. I'm not gonna lie. There were some moments when I was like little mushroom. The sides grew faster than the top. Oh, but that was short-lived in the scheme of things. Like in life, I had a year of terrible haircuts. So be it.
That's basically a whole childhood anyway. Like you could look back on your
Right?
childhood years and you're like, what is going on here? Um, Speaking of 2020, another shout out I want to give you. I don't know if it's still up on YouTube. You know that brilliant song that you wrote about COVID? Mm. Oh my gosh, I watched that
I
so
don't
many
know if it
times.
is. I should find it. I'll find it and I'll share the link with you, and then
Yeah,
you
but what
can.
was it called again? You did it to it. It was a parody of, do you
Yes,
remember?
I created it too. Um, uh, well, I don't remember the first one. The first one's a bit more stripped back. I think it was a Sam Smith song, and it was something about um the COVID, like you couldn't touch something like that. The one you're thinking about is a parody of Natalie Imbruglia's Torn.
Yes.
But instead of torn, I called it home. So it was like, nothing's right, I'm home.
Yeah.
And they're
And
in
the
the song
toilet
talking about
paper.
that's
Oh
it.
my
Yeah.
gosh, it's so good. You
That's
need
what
to see
happens when your husband's deployed and COVID means you can't see any friends and you just spend a lot of time with your dog. That's
get Audrey on the treadmill or something. I can't remember.
Oh yeah, I had Audrey on the treadmill. She was great. She's a real showbiz girl. She Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Can you see this? Like
Yes, living her
living.
best life. That's awesome. Does she enjoy the boat? Like, what's
She's
she think
actually
of
a
it?
great travel dog. She's a bit
Okay.
older now, so she doesn't need as much exercise, but we took her to land almost every single day, just on
Okay.
the tin. She had a good run, so
Cool.
she's a great travel pooch.
I love it. I love it. And yes, look up Lyndell Harbeck torn parody. I don't know what it's under these days, but you need to see it just to reminisce on the good old COVID times and how much we were all losing our mind for sure.
Absolutely.
Couple last things. So if people actually want to hear some of your amazing songs and things like that, I'd love to let them know like her music. She did sing Nate, no, myself down the aisle to Nate. Um, Beautiful song. That was a cover, that one of Carolyn Spence, which is a beautiful song. Yeah,
Condition.
Mint Condition. Did you see what Nate did? But the hand. Oh yeah, you did. Yeah.
Writing is too beautiful for a
Yeah.
man.
Something starts going on there. But but Lyndall, you sung at Nicole's memorial. in a beautiful way too. Like your voice has carried me through some of the worst and best days of my life, and it's a voice that means a lot to me. And so I'd love for people to be able to hear more of it too. So, where can we find your music?
Instagram's probably the easiest place, and I've got links to my SoundCloud, which has one song on it, but it's the song that I recently wrote. So my Instagram is lyndell.harbeck, easy peasy.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, you can check me out there.
Are you gonna? Have we got more coming? Music?
Yeah, I've written a few more. I just haven't gotten around to recording them. Recording them on the boat is a little bit tricky.
I can
But
imagine.
but it's nice. I get some time on the boat to do things that I love to do. So like my music, and
Did you
I've
did you make
been
the clothes you're wearing?
I made the clothes I'm wearing.
Yeah.
Like
Give
got
us a
this
give us a show. Look at that. Beautiful. Aw. And it's so you, so bright and pretty. I love it. So fun.
uh, so yeah, it's been nice to have some time to work on passion projects.
Absolutely. And Lucky Last Marketing Movement, is that if people are looking for extra support on their online business, is that where they find you guys or?
Yes. Marketingmovement.net is our website.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much, not just for your time today, but just being a living example of living life to the fullest, being brave, being generous. Um, Personally, I look up to you in so many ways, and I'm sure now, some of your stories I think will stay with my listeners for a while. Which, if you're listening, go do something, go channel your inner Lyndall and just, just effing
Aw,
do it. I can't.
just do it.
Yeah,
Just do it.
and yeah, and give Lyndall a follow if you want to keep following the boat adventures too. So.
Yeah. Mostly for the stories because I do some very strange things and it can be of comedic value.
I love it. Well, thank you so much and all the best in the rest of your adventures.
Thanks, Kate.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in to the show. Are you looking for an inspiring speaker for your next event, conference, or company meeting? Check out my website, kategladden.com, where you can learn more about my impactful keynote presentations that empower people to change the way they respond to adversity. Less complaining, less drama, and less stress, and more recognizing, reflecting, and redirecting. That is the key to resilience, and I'd love to share it at your next event. Learn more at kategladden.com.